raise your crown king nothing.
Hello everyone, xForts here, and welcome to 2019, guys. I hope you all had a wonderful holiday last month and a great New Year's. And I also hope you guys are ready for another amazing year full of JoJo. We have the Golden Wind anime that's currently coming out, and that will be happening for a majority of the year. And of course, we have JoJolion chapters that will be releasing throughout the year, every single month, except for next month, because it's going on hiatus. But anyways, also, I want to apologize for the 4 weeks without uploads. The last video was the JoJolion review for December 2018. I just took an unannounced break from YouTube just to enjoy myself around the holidays and just take a break and make sure I don't burn out or anything like that. So I think it's always healthy to take breaks on YouTube and not, overwork yourself or anything like that. So I hope you guys understand, and I hope no one's too upset about the 4 weeks without uploads, but we're here now starting off the new year with the JoJolion review, and I'm ready to make a ton of great content for you guys throughout the year. And throughout those 4 weeks, I've had a lot of time to plan current videos, upcoming videos that I can be working on, and I'm really excited. So again, I apologize, guys. I wish I was there for you guys to make videos for the end of last year and the beginning of this year, but we're here now, and I hope a JoJolion review and some other videos that will be coming out this month are good enough. But again, 2019 is going to be a great year, and I hope you guys are excited. So with that out of the way, let's get on to this month's JoJolion review. Chapter 83, review and discussion. This chapter is titled Countdown to the Harvest, and I was so nervous for this chapter to release because with the past 2 days, I've had members of the color team and other members of the community and friends that were spoiled on it because on 4chan /AA or /a/ there was a upload of pretty much the entire chapter's raws, and everyone was freaking out. Thank God I didn't get spoiled on it until I spoiled myself. But people were just messaging me saying, JoJolion this month is going to be crazy. Prepare yourself. It's huge. Important things are happening. And I was just like, dude, what is happening? And then I could not wait. 6 hours before the chapter came out, I went to /a/ and I just scrolled down until I found it. And yeah, I spoiled myself on the visuals, and I was like, oh, but we'll talk about it this month. So yeah, if some of you guys like to watch these JoJolion reviews that aren't fully caught up, I recommend you definitely don't spoil yourself with this month because there's really important stuff. And as the title would imply, Countdown to the Harvest, JoJolion is concluding very soon. We're definitely entering the final arc. I know I say that a lot, but it's just undeniable at this point considering how far we are, chapter 83. And also, I was researching some Araki interviews for another video I was planning, but what I found was something very interesting. This was an interview. I can link it down below in the description as well. It was an interview Araki did with Yahoo Japan. He's done a few interviews with them before, and in this specific interview, Araki was asked on JoJolion's current development. And what he had to say was that leading up to the hospital, he plans on the whole part having a conversion after the hospital arc, and he's going to be wrapping it up. So that's just kind of confirmed that we're going to be entering the final arc here, as again Araki said that after the hospital arc, which we are concluding right now, we're done at the hospital and we're moving on from that. He plans on having the series converge and this be where he's going to wrap up the part. So Countdown to the Harvest, when this countdown started 2 years ago, when the new Rokakaka was going to be Harvest, I was like, I assume the part is going to end when this countdown ends, but then now we're getting a new countdown, which is instead of, I can't even remember what the countdown was before. I think it was finding the branch, but now this new countdown is the Rokakaka actually being harvested. So with that out of the way, guys, the interview, I think I mentioned, end of the year stuff, new year stuff, new plans, and then Araki's interview with Yahoo Japan. So let's get on to the chapter here, starting with the cover page. Of course, it is a very nice portrait of Josuke and a whole bunch of stands grabbing him, and some narration that says pulling one another and being pulled by one another. This is a really awesome cover page. You see Soft and Wet's hand on the top of Josuke's hand. Paisley Park is holding him by the shoulders and throat, and then you have Nut King Call holding his torso area. And on the back, I'm not sure what stand that's supposed to be. I think it's most obviously Doggy Style, but I don't remember Doggy Style having little hearts at the ends of its strings, so I don't know. Just with the strings, I'd assume that's Doggy Style, but the more I looked at it, the more I was like, maybe that could be Walking Heart. Walking Heart has a very strain-like design, but it's probably Doggy Style. So to get onto the actual chapter here, where it picks up is a little bit of a skip from the end of chapter 82. So the last thing that happened last chapter, quick little recap, was Mitsuba having her exchange complete and she lost her nose. And then everyone was just kind of looking at her and was like, oh, and they were just kind of shocked. So that's what happened last chapter, but this chapter picks up outside of the hospital. And before we see our characters, we get some exposition about the TG University Hospital, things like its employee count, how many doctors, how many nurses are in it when it was established, its logo, which is a sword and a snake, which is used to symbolize wisdom in the field of medical science. So yeah, pretty much the first 2 pages are just exposition of the hospital, and there's even things like there's a cafe in it, and there's places to sleep, and there's pretty much everything you would need to live is in the hospital. And there's a nice little piece of dialogue from Mamazuku that says, I wouldn't mind living here, which is kind of like a callback to what's his name, Mamazuku living in like weird places, how he lived on the ski lift and he had everything he needed up there. And we also get this really funny panel of Mamazuku and Yasuo chilling in Jobin's stolen Lamborghini. If you zoom in on it, it's really funny because they just have no faces. But now on to the actual beef of this chapter. This chapter's kind of split up into 3 parts. The beginning part is a recap of what our characters are doing and what they're going to be planning on doing with the upcoming chapters. And then the middle section is a flash forward where we see the Higashikata family. And then the final act, the third part of the chapter, is 3 days after where we currently are in the beginning, if that makes sense. We're jumping a lot around time period wise. So in the beginning of the chapter where you see Mamazuku and everyone outside the hospital, the ending of the chapter takes place 3 days after this. And it's a lot focused on Tsurugi, which I'm really excited to talk about. But before we get there, things that they discover about the hospital as they continue doing research on it is that there were 4 doctors that had access to the Rokakaka research facility lab, and we see Urban Gorilla, Poor Tom, and Wu Tomaki, and 1 mysterious doctor. And we see we see Urban Gorilla's face, whose name is Shimatsu. I gotta say this right, Shimosato Ryu. Or Rio, however you would pronounce it. And he is one ugly looking dude, man. Good thing Urban Gorilla had a mask on. He was pretty sexy when he had his mask on, and a lot of people liked Urban Gorilla, but this version of Urban Gorilla, no, I wish we never even saw his face here. He's got, like, I don't know, he's just really nerdy looking, but I don't know. I guess that's what it's like. He's pretty old too. We got the ages of all the doctors as well. Wu Tomaki was age 34, Urban Gorilla, aka Rio, was age 38, and Poor Tom was age 57. And I like how each of their medical fields sort of tie into their stands a little bit. So Wu Tomaki specialized in neurosurgery, as he was able to use he was able to use Dr. Wu. Was that his stand's name? I already forgot, but I think it was Dr. Wu, yeah, to stop the Rokakaka from going into people's brains. And Poor Tom's specialty was I can't say these words, goddamn. Infertility treatment, okay, I can say it. And that's kind of a callback because when we were first introduced to Poor Tom, he was like over-sexualized, like he was like having sex with a woman, like, and he was eating her out, and the woman made a note that he was like really good at it. She was like, oh my gosh, like all those things you do with your tongue, they feel so good. And I guess that's now a callback to his profession as he works with infertility and maybe like some gynecology or anything like that. And I don't really know about Urban Gorilla. His specialty is gastrointestinal disease, which is a whole bunch of things, and I don't really know how Brainstorm would help with that, being able to just like melt your body from the outside. But okay, that's like more background information on the 3 characters that we've been fighting for the past like 3 years now, and their ages and what they did around the hospital. So I like this because now it splits up these characters into a very distinct category. Before, you guys know, if you guys have been watching JoJolion reviews for a few years now, I've always had complaints of like the last 3 years of JoJolion because the enemy stand users just felt all over the place, and I was like, where are these guys coming from? There's no organization, there's no affiliate, like these guys have no affiliation with anyone, because before it was like the Rokakaka drug trade. You had all those members, Yotsuyu, Damo Tamaki, the Aphex brothers, all those guys had the affiliation with the Rokakaka drug trade. And then we got introduced to like Urban Gorilla, who just kind of came out of nowhere and was attacking Mamazuku and Josuke when they were trying to get to Mamazuku's place. And like I was like, okay, who are these guys? Where did they come from? And the only thing we learned about them was that they are doctors. And then Jobin calls up Poor Tom and it was like, hey, Poor Tom, I need you to deal with these guys. And then I was like, okay, now this Poor Tom guy comes out of nowhere with no affiliation to Urban Gorilla or anyone, but now this wraps up all nicely that this group of enemy stand users we've been fighting are all associated with the TG University Hospital, and they were all doctors. And I don't think there was any mention of poor Tom ever being a doctor. So it's nice to know now that he was in affiliation with everyone else. So I kind of wish that was established earlier so we had more understanding of the enemy stand users we were fighting, but better late than never, I guess. But I think the biggest piece of information from the reveal of the 4 doctors that had access to the Rokakaka lab is the mysterious 4th doctor, age 89. I think that's 89, maybe 87. Yeah, 89. So this mysterious 4th doctor, very old, and they're also described to be the leader and the head of this whole group in the Rokakaka research facility. So there's not much predictions or theorizing we can do as of now. I've seen some people conclude that this could be Holly Joestar, because I don't think we have an exact age on how old Holly Joestar is, and also that it would make sense for her to be the 4th doctor that had access to the Rokakaka facility, because as we learned last chapter, she was the one that built it. She was the one that decided to do research on these forbidden fruits, and she built this entire lab, so it would only make sense that she would be one of the doctors that had access to it. But then again, I feel like it's being heavily implied that whoever this 4th mysterious head doctor, head of all of these stand users that we've been fighting for the past few years, is, they're blacked out, they're mysterious, and that they're the leader. I think that's heavily implying that this person could be a candidate for main villain. So giving that to Holly Joestar, it's been a theory ever since JoJolion's, beginning that Holly could be a main villain, and I just don't see it. I don't see it at all. It just doesn't make sense at all for Holly to be a main villain, because she's sort of the catalyst for the entire plot right now, trying to save her, and also she's a full-blood Joestar. She's more of a Joestar than Josuke is, so I don't know, man. Having her be a main villain just doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. We don't know if she's a stand user, and I don't know. Maybe one of you guys convince me with a crazy theory that has so many connections to why Holly could be a main villain, but so many people have asked me my opinions on that, and I just don't see Holly being a candidate for main villain at all. I still think it's going to be Kato, and Kato's mentioned in this chapter here, so I pray that Kato is possibly this 4th doctor that had access to this lab, and somehow she's going to get connected to all this hospital and Rokakaka research. But as for now, it's looking a little thin, and I have no idea who this 4th doctor is going to be, or if they're going to be relevant at all. So now moving on more past the background of the TG University Hospital, the rest of this just sort of continues. This first part of the chapter is interactions between Mamazuku, Yasuo, and Josuke, specifically between Mamazuku and Yasuo, as Mamazuku is showing in this chapter that he really doesn't like Yasuo at all. He thinks she just gets in the way. He doesn't like how she disobeys him and doesn't follow orders, because when they're on the phone, Mamazuku restated that when we called you like 6 chapters ago, we said, stay still, do not go anywhere, we're coming to get you. And what did Yasuo do? She left. She went with Mitsuba, and then she got herself in trouble with Wutomaki. So Mamazuku already didn't like Yasuo. He already pretty much tried to kill her during the Urban Gorilla fight, and now he's like, you don't listen, you disobey everything, you get in the way, and now you didn't listen to us, and you running away there was the whole reason why we had to track you down and save you. So Mamazuku, as always, is fed up with Yasuo's shit, and he's just being, really aggressive towards her, which is like, I know that's sort of Mamazuku's personality, and he's a really blunt and raw person, but I don't know. I feel really bad for Yasuo this chapter, because no one's on her side, no one's defending her, and I feel like she's just being left out in the dark. So also, one thing I want to mention is that at the end of the last chapter, Yasuo was trying to explain to Mamazuku that the branch is not in the possession of the doctors. Wherever the branch is, I think it's at the Morioh, or the Higashikata estate. She says that, Wutomaki was also looking for the branch, so he doesn't have it. And but Mamazuku is just not listening to her. And at the end of the last chapter, Josuke said, Yasuo, who do we know that could have done this? And I thought maybe they were going to come to the conclusion that Tsurugi has the ability to make things, to change your perception of things, and that they would have came to the conclusion that they need to go to the Higashikata estate and investigate Tsurugi. But now in this chapter, Josuke just completely forgot about that idea and is siding with Mamazuku. And he's like, Yasuo, I think we need to listen to Mamazuku. He knows what he's talking about, and I don't think the branch is at the Higashikata estate. I think we need to focus more on the hospital side. And it's like Josuke, like, you used to love Yasuo. Like, Yasuo was like your burning passion. I went back and I reread chapter, the Yotsuyu arc, because that's going to be relevant later in this chapter. But like, anytime anything bad happened to Yasuo, Josuke's eyes would light up with fire similar to Johnny Joestar from part 7. And he cared so much about Yasuo and he would do anything to protect her. And now it just seems like he doesn't care about her at all. Like he never takes her side with anything. He's ignoring her most of the time. And by the end of this part right here, at the first part, he just leaves. Him and Mamazuku get in the stolen Lamborghini and just leave Yasuo at the hospital because he's agreeing with Mamazuku that she's just getting in the way and she's not contributing to anything. So seeing Josuke just like completely flip on his emotions for Yasuo and not really care about her at all and not even try to comfort her or maybe side with her, it's just like, I don't know, Josuke's acting really weird right now and he just seems like he's really following Mamazuku's orders and he doesn't really have a character of his own. I don't know, he feels like he's being very reactive in the last like 10 chapters and nothing he's doing is proactive at all. It feels like he's just it feels like the only reason Josuke is in the story right now is for his standability. I mean, he's not contributed to much through his own ideas, and he's not really having his own ideas of what to do. He's just following Mamazuku and using his stand. So I'd like to see Josuke actually be more of a proactive character and decide what to do when he wants to do it based on, his ideals or anything, but that's just not happening at all. And the last thing to mention before we move on to the middle part of the chapter is that Yasuo's ex-boyfriend Toru appears again and he comforts Yasuo in her time of need. And it's also, I think it might be alluded to that he is a stand user. I think he's going to be a stand user. He's appeared in 3 separate occasions now, in 3 separate locations around the hospital, interacting with characters. His design's like really intricate, so I couldn't see this character just being fodder or just never appearing again, but he comforts Yasuo in her time of need, they hold hands, and he emphasizes the above. So he puts his hand out and Yasuo grabs his hand and he says like, have you ever noticed, Yasuo, that your hand is always above mine? Anytime I reach my hand out, yours is always beneath and mine is above. And I don't know if this is just the way that it's translated and the typesetting is done, but the word above is said twice by him and it's in quotations and it's bold. So usually when characters emphasize specific words, it could have to do with their standability or relate to their character in one way or another. So the way he phrases and the way he talks and the use of the word above makes me think that there is a little bit more to this character than just being Yasuo's ex-boyfriend. And it's also confirmed that he is in med school and he's working his way to becoming a doctor. So other suspicion there, is he a rock human, is he not? I still don't think he's a rock human. And that's the conclusion of the first half of the chapter, and it doesn't really make sense what Josuke and Mamazuku are doing right now because they've come to the conclusion that they need to do more research on the hospital and find out who this 4th doctor is, but the last thing we see is them leaving the hospital in the Lamborghini, so it's like, okay, you'd assume to get more information about this doctor, you'd ask around the hospital, maybe even ask Toru, but no, they just leave. So whatever, we'll see what they're up to in the next chapter. Now we get into the middle part of the chapter, which is probably the most exciting and the one that people were talking about the massive spoilers for and how JoJolion is getting really crazy. And I agree after reading this. JoJolion is really heating up and things are happening, guys. It's been 3 years, but things are finally happening. So what we see is that we see all of our favorite Higashikata family members. We see Hato looking thick as ever, my favorite girl, sitting next to Tsurugi. And then you see everyone else. You see Joshu and Daya as well around. So we see Hato laying down and a ton comes up and licks her in the ear. And when I first saw this, I thought, okay, this is probably Tsurugi because early in the part, Tsurugi was seen being like pretty sexual towards Yasuo when Yasuo first came into like his little cave outside of the Higashikata home. And he was like licking her and talking about like nude selfies. So I thought this was maybe because Tsurugi is laying right next to Hato. So I was like, oh, Tsurugi just came up and licked Hato's ear for some reason. But she blames Joshu and she says, Joshu, I know that was you. Why the hell did you lick me? And Joshu's on the other side of the room and he's like, I didn't do anything. And she says, it's just like sibling talk, like, screw you. When you grow up, you're going to be poor. You're going to be in debt. You're going to go to jail. And just like, just sibling talk like that. But then you see that it actually was Joshu that licked her. He used Nut King Call to remove his tongue from his body, and I guess send it over to the other side of the room to lick his sister's ear. Just typical Joshu for you guys. Just Joshu shenanigans. Why the hell would Joshu ever do this? Who knows? He's just being Joshu. But This is where things go from like really comedic and really light to extremely dark and extremely grim. So Daya says, Tsurugi, how about you go upstairs and get dad? You know, he's up in his like study or wherever he is. We have his tea ready and his food or whatever. Yeah, his Taiwanese tea is ready. I just poured it for him. So Tsurugi begins walking up to Norisuke's estate. And while this is all happening, you can tell that there's a pretty dramatic shift in the tone as Araki goes on to have an explanation of stand abilities. And pretty much the gist of this is he explains that stand abilities, like we know, physical manifestations of one's inner spirit, reflect one's personality and their ideals, or can manifest from traumatic experiences, or just what one person finds important. And he explains that stands are like hearts, they're deep within us, we don't show them to people, although everyone knows they're there. And that can be a callback to Norisuke earlier in the part when he said stands are like your asshole, you don't go around showing people your asshole. But the one thing that Araki emphasizes and is like the big part of this is that he says, but occasionally there are changes in the heart along with the stand ability. And he says stands are like an energy, and when you can have a change in heart, you can have an overflowing of emotion similar to an erupting volcano. And in a change of heart can also come changes in one's stand abilities for the better or for the worse. And after this explanation is concluded, or the last thing he says is that sometimes when someone might step into darkness, the stand will become uncontrollable and it won't stop until it reaches its destination. And you see Tsurugi just emotionlessly walking towards Norisuke's estate, or Norisuke's study. And as soon as the conclusion ends, you see Tsurugi walk into the room and Norisuke is on the floor, bloody, in a body bag, completely incapacitated. And Tsurugi continues to drag his own father outside of the room, completely stone cold, just blank of all emotion, as what's presumed he carries his dead father out of his room in a body bag. And that is where the middle part of the chapter concludes. And it's seen that this interaction happened 10 days after the beginning of the chapter. It says time until the Rokakaka harvest, 0 days, 0 hours, 13 minutes. And then you see the whole family together and you get that shifting where there's like lines vertically that insinuates motion. That is usually used when Araki wants to change the time period. And it says these events happened 7 days prior. And then the final part of the chapter takes place 3 days after the first part. The first part was 10 days before the harvest, middle part 13 minutes before the harvest, and then the third part of the chapter is going to be 7 days before the harvest. So right now, this middle chapter just pretty much showed us where we are going to end up. Norisuke quite possibly could die. We don't know who did this to him. Obviously, it's implied that Tsurugi knows that this happened, but we don't know if it was Tsurugi that did this to his father or if it was Jobin or anyone else that Tsurugi may be working with in order to harvest this new fruit. And this was just a shocking moment. Seeing Norisuke, one of the best characters in the entire part, full of love for his family. He has a loving family. He cares nothing more than for his children, and he was willing to risk his life for Tsurugi. Norisuke had all the intentions. If Tsurugi ever got sick with the rock disease, Norisuke would be the first one to sacrifice himself to save his grandson. And now, seeing Norisuke, presumably dead, being carried out in a body bag by Tsurugi is just super dark, man. And oh my gosh, just seeing what the implications that this could have with the entire family finding out their father's dead. They all love Norisuke. No one has any problems with Norisuke. He's loving. He's given his family more than they could any ask for. They all live at home, and he pays for everything. Norisuke has built up the fruit parlor for his family, and he's done everything for them. And to see him betrayed by his own family, potentially maybe being Tsurugi and Jobin, is just absolutely devastating. And what this could imply for when the entire family finds out that Norisuke is dead, that is just going to be soul crushing to the whole family, and it's just going to tear them apart. Like, after seeing Norisuke maybe dead, I don't want to say he's dead for sure because anything could happen. Nothing's ever going to be the same. The Higashikata family is never going to be the loving group family. We're never going to see them making pancakes again, never having breakfast, never just hanging out around the house. Everything's going to be broken. Norisuke was the foundation for the family that brought everyone together, and with him gone, it's not going to work anymore. everything's dead. Everything's over. You know, the entire family is going to resent Tsurugi, their own brother. They're just going to resent him for what he did, possibly even try to hurt him. Jobin, of course, they're just going to exile him. No one's going to care about him. And then that could cause fights between the family members that do like each other, like Hato and Joshu and Daya. Everything's falling apart. This is tearing absolutely everything apart. And I also kind of like how Araki showed us the conclusion of what's going to happen, and then we're going to, you know, build up to these events. Some series do this. For example, the American television show Breaking Bad does this a lot, where in the beginning of an episode or the beginning of a season, it will show us the end point, where it, like, a specific example, in the first episode of Breaking Bad, the first thing we see is the main character, Walter White, holding a gun up to a police car in his underwear in a crashed meth lab. But then we skip to the, just a few moments later, we see him in the beginning of the episode where he's just an ordinary, chemistry teacher. And I really like that when series do that. Some manga series do it as well, but it's really prevalent in TV shows where we'll be shown the end point, we'll be completely spoiled by it, but it's always better to see how we get to that conclusion. So I think now we can move on from this middle part of the chapter where, a lot of people are thinking Norisuke is dead, which is absolutely insane. Things are actually happening in JoJolion, but I'm not going to say I'm too surprised about Norisuke's fate. As you guys know, if you guys have seen the Sad Truth of K Nothing video, I had the prediction that if any character is going to die in JoJolion, it's going to be Norisuke. Norisuke just seems like an easy pick to be, killed off for emotional impact between characters. And I thought his fate was going to be him sacrificing himself for Tsurugi, but it seems Tsurugi and other members of the Higashikata family, mostly Jobin, may betray their own father and kill him for their own, whatever they want to accomplish. So that is just, wow. Things are actually happening in JoJolion now. But now on to the last part of the chapter, which is 3 days after the beginning part, where Mitsuba is, she's left the hospital and she's going to pick up Tsurugi, or Mitsuba has left the hospital and she's going to pick up Tsurugi from the same little, Boy Scouts camp that Jobin was at. So it's pretty cool seeing the similarities between Jobin and Tsurugi sort of coming up sort of the same childhood. And it's really cute seeing Tsurugi in his Boy Scout uniform, the same one that Jobin wore. But this is also similar to the middle part. This is another really dark part of the chapter, and it gives us massive character development for Tsurugi and helping us understand his character and how he is going to be a very important character for JoJolion. I always had the idea that Tsurugi was a very important character in JoJolion. He had more screen time than any other member of the Higashikata family, even more than Jobin. He had a few arcs where he was the main focus of, and he was also the subject next in line to have the rock disease. I thought his character was mostly going to, focus around his rock disease development and characters sacrificing themselves for him and just the danger that comes along with that. But it turns out Tsurugi's character is taking a much darker turn. So when Tsurugi is in the Boy Scouts camp, when Mitsuba goes to pick him up, the teacher, or like the leader of it, says, like, I need to talk to you about Tsurugi. Tsurugi is being bullied by the other, their students. And what we see with the subject matter is that he's actually being made fun of as his grandmother, Kato. So we all know that Kato went to prison because she murdered a child, but the body was never found. They only found DNA of the child in her trunk. And the kids were making fun of him, saying, hey, Tsurugi, can your grandmother tell us how to bury a child without being found out? Ha ha ha, like your grandmother committed murder. You're probably the same way. Like you guys are fucked up. Like how could you guys do this? And it's nice seeing that Kato is brought up back into the story again, and she's not completely forgotten about, and she may appear again. But yeah, this is what's happening right now. Tsurugi is being bullied by these children because of what his grandmother did, and this is like really pissing off Tsurugi, and also it's causing Tsurugi to lash out on the children violently, using his stand ability to scare them. Like one instance, he used his paper moon cane to create a frog, and that made one of the children that was bullying him jump into the river, and they got all wet. And when the teacher is talking to Mitsuba about this interaction, Mitsuba is extremely defensive, saying, if you're thinking that our Higashikata family had anything to do with the murder of a child, you are completely wrong. And she is like, she says, I'm gonna get you fired for even mentioning this or even talking to me about this. So Mitsuba is sort of like unreasonably defensive in this situation, which makes me think that maybe she could have ties to Kato, and like, I don't know. It just seems that she's really like unreasonably defensive, like I mentioned. So I don't really know what's the deal with Mitsuba right now or why she's acting like this. It seems like she could just have more of a motherly reaction, like, oh, that's unfortunate to hear that the children are bullying my son. How about you do something about it? But instead, Mitsuba is just like lashing out on her. And also Mitsuba's rock nose changed designs a little bit. It's a little bit longer and it's not so wide. It seems like it looks like it's healing to some extent, but Mitsuba still looks pretty cool, pretty cute and cool with her rock nose. But then we get to the conclusion of the chapter where Tsurugi comes to meet up with Mitsuba, and then there is a big yell, like, everyone's yelling, what happened? And that's right when Tsurugi comes into frame. This happened, and one of Tsurugi's classmates had died. Their head was crushed in between gates, and they were bleeding all over the place. And people were like, how could this possibly have happened? There's a child bleeding out. Someone call an ambulance. There's a child dead in between the gates. And it's pretty obvious to tell that Tsurugi did this, or Tsurugi had something to do with this, because he is just emotionless, like I said, stone cold face throughout this entire chapter, and he's just looking over it, and as they're saying, someone call an ambulance, Tsurugi's like, Mom, can we go home now? And then when the teacher says, who did this? Did anyone see what happened? One of the children points to Tsurugi and said, it was Tsurugi that did this, and that's where the chapter ends, with another countdown, 7 days and 44 minutes till until the harvest is finished. So this has huge implications, and this is really important for Tsurugi's character development. So this is definitely not how I saw Tsurugi's character developing throughout JoJolion, but when you think about it in retrospect, it makes perfect sense for Tsurugi to become violent and outlash and, very defiant of authority and acting like this, because let's think about Tsurugi's life. Tsurugi has been neglected and isolated from his parents and his family for a majority of his life. He's 10 years old. He lives in a separate house from the Higashikata family. The whole family lives together, and Tsurugi lives in his own separate little estate underground, completely separate from the whole family. Throughout the entire part, we've rarely, if ever, seen him have any interactions with his father and his mother, except for now. This is the first time we've ever seen Tsurugi and Mitsuba together, except for like the way beginning of JoJolion when she was holding him. And Jobin was, again, he was traveling around the world, and he never had much interactions with Tsurugi until he needed him to carry out his mission of getting the new Rokakaka branch and take over the business from his father. So Tsurugi doesn't really seem, to have much of a parent influence in his life except for Norisuke. And when Jobin did want to see Tsurugi, it was really only because he needed something out of him. So what we know about Tsurugi also is that way beginning in the early parts of JoJolion, the only person that had a really meaningful impact on Tsurugi and made him do something was Yotsuyu, who was the first rock human we were ever introduced to that influenced Tsurugi's mind to thinking that the Higashikata family is sort of the enemy, and that Tsurugi needs to work with Yotsuyu and the rock humans, and he would be able to cure his rock disease. So as the part has gone on, Tsurugi has lost more and more faith in his family, and he's more so been influenced by darker things in his life, like his father Jobin that wants to go against the family, and also Yotsuyu who wanted to take down the Higashikata family. So it makes perfect sense for Tsurugi to want to betray his family like this because of the way he's been treated his entire life, and also the negative influences that have impacted him. And also, this was foreshadowed way back in chapter 32 during the Yotsuyu arc, I Am a Rock. Which makes me feel like Araki had Tsurugi's character and his developments planned out since the way beginning of JoJolion. There was dialogue by Yotsuyu that said, Josuke and Norisuke, you are going to be betrayed by the Higashikata family. And he also says the ones whose actions are correct are Tsurugi Higashikata. So he insinuated that Tsurugi Higashikata was the one who was going to betray the Higashikata family. And here we are over 60 chapters later, almost 60 chapters later, where Tsurugi is seen carrying his father dead and also betraying the family in one way or another and acting out in violence, killing other children around him. And it's just like, wow, it's crazy to think that was foreshadowed way back in chapter 32. And yes, Tsurugi actually is going to be the one who is betraying the Higashikata family. So Tsurugi is being consumed by darkness, having negative influences in his life, and because of his upbringing, being isolated from his family and neglected from his parents, this is causing him to outlash and really be consumed by darkness. And what Araki mentioned earlier in the chapter with how with changes of heart can also come changes in stand ability. And this might be implying that Tsurugi's stand, Paper Moon Cane, which was, originally the stand developed from Tsurugi's childish personality. He loved origami, he loved toys, so his stand manifested in like an origami toy that allowed to change people's perspective. perception. It was a pretty innocent stand, although way earlier in the part, Tsurugi already killed someone. If you guys remember during the Dubiwa arc, Tsurugi killed that person, and Tsurugi has killed more people than like 90% of the JoJolion cast already. So with Tsurugi's change of heart may also come a change in his stand ability that is more aligned with his darker heart now. And we didn't really see anything of it in this chapter, although there was one thing. When Tsurugi was carrying out Norisuke from his study, we saw a use of Paper Moon King, but I didn't really understand what it did. I'll show the panel on screen now. It was really hard to interpret what Paper Moon King was doing. It looked like it was doing something to Norisuke, but it definitely wasn't altering perception or anything like that. And also at the end of the chapter, we see Paper Moon King and Tsurugi in some way murder another child by closing their head in between the gates. And with Araki and how he utilizes stand abilities, I'm sure Paper Moon King could do that in one way or another, but it seems like Tsurugi could be developing a new stand with a new ability that aligns more with his darker heart, which is pretty crazy. And Tsurugi has always been a character I really like. At one point, he was my favorite character in JoJolion, and seeing him consumed by darkness and go down this wrong path is like, it's really hard to see, man, and it's really unfortunate. But I mean, seeing something this crazy happen in JoJolion is great because JoJolion has seemed pretty static for a while, and we really needed something that changes up the part and gets things rolling. But Tsurugi being the catalyst for all this, I wanted Tsurugi to be the catalyst for big events in the part, but just not in this way. So I'm really interested to see how these events are going to unfold and what is in store for the future of Tsurugi and how he is going to be further consumed by darkness and how these events are going to unfold to eventually lead to Norisuke's death, if that was his death, or we get baited and he's not dead and he's just being inflicted by his stand ability or anything. But JoJolion chapter 83, this was a wild ride, guys, and I am more excited than ever from the past like 3 years for the future of JoJolion because Countdown to the Harvest, this part could be ending sooner than we think. And it looks like 7 days, about 7 days in time is when this part is going to wrap up. So let me know what your guys' thoughts are on the current arc of JoJolion, what is going to happen for the future, what you guys think of Tsurugi's character development, and so many things to discuss with this chapter. So I'll be down there in the comments with you guys to talk about it. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching JoJolion chapter 83 review and discussion. Again, Happy New Year's, guys. I'm really excited for 2019 and making more videos for you guys. I really appreciate you guys sticking with the channel and, you know, still watching my videos even after like 4 weeks of not uploading. That means a lot. And also, we have a new outro. I've had no outro for a while since my September song kept getting copyrighted and I wasn't able to use it anymore, but new outro made by Voltapass, which will roll right now. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys like the new outro and are excited for new videos. All right, peace, guys.